Hello, ladies, and welcome to the first edition of Your Essence Journey. So, the idea of this is we're taking real women in real life and talking about real discussion about connecting with your essence. And I'm Michele Vineyard, founder of Essence Experience. For those of you who don't know me, I have the pleasure of JoAnne Civiletto being here with me today. And she is from Stillness Purpose Coaching. And her tagline is guiding caregivers to ditch the overwhelm for good. Sounds good to me. So I'm going to give you a little background about JoAnne. She was in a loop. She felt powerless and was actually homeless with 3 children to care for, debt up to her eyeballs, and she felt hopeless. What that looks like now is she is living in peace with a tool set and powerful practices that support that. She's a transformational life and resilience coach with 2 decades of coaching experience, and her clients truly trade chaos for healing, purpose, and abundance. I don't know about you, but I think that sounds grand. So I met JoAnne when I started coaching about 3 years ago. I found her business card in a holistic food store, and I looked her up because I thought it'd be really cool to connect with coaches in my area. And so I looked her up. We connected at her place of work. We have come together a couple times and done a couple of collaborations together. And so it just made perfect sense that we would get together. I asked her about being the first person on Your Essence Journey and was delighted when she accepted. So here we are. All right, JoAnne, do you have anything that you want to say as we open up for the ladies?
I'm really glad to be here. I love working with you and I love your mission, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
We have very similar messages, which I love, but we both speak with our unique flavor, and we have some really interesting conversations for sure. All right, so I'm going to go through some questions, and I did give them to JoAnne ahead of time so that she could take them into meditation, reflection, and feel into what she wanted to share with you ladies today. But it is going to be a dialogue, so we really do not know where this conversation will go, and that's just what makes a great conversation. So we're going to start out with JoAnne, tell us something interesting about you that most people don't know.
Well, I thought it would be fun to share that I've been on a health journey for the last 10 years. And actually, we are all on a health journey from a lifetime, right? A lifetime health journey. But I've been on a very specific health journey for the last 10 years. And I really do think that most of my friends think that all I eat is seeds and grass. So I thought that would be fun to share because I actually eat a ton of vegetables and meat, and have found a great deal of healing through that type of nutrition.
Okay, so you're like the grass and seed girl for your friends.
That's what I think. That's what a lot of people think that I eat, but no, I'm the vegetable and meat girl.
Oh, okay. So how do you when your friends talk to you about that, how do you introduce that discussion without seeming like you're coming at them? How do you make that a dialogue with them?
Usually they tell me I look great, and I say, well, it's because I watch what I eat, and I love food. And a lot of people get thrown off by that, which is why I thought I'd start with it, because a lot of people get thrown off by what story they have of us in their head.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what I talk about with my clients, is about story and what we believe versus what others believe about us and what we need to focus on. So I lead with, usually I choose. I get to choose what I eat now.
Yeah, so that puts you in the place of power. Instead of the food having the power over you, you have the power over food.
Yes. It's all of it comes down to choice. So, yeah. But yeah, so that's actually where the dialogue gets started usually.
Well, tell me, so if we're going to dive into this conversation of resilience and transformation. What are the most important lessons you've learned? Do we want to stick to that topic about the
Okay.
nutrition? Okay. So
Well, no,
around that.
we can go. Actually, it rolls right into the most important lesson I've ever learned is actually that we get to choose. We get to choose how we approach our life, how we approach our chaos, how we approach our response to it. When I can't say I figured it out on my own because I didn't. But,
Me either.
but when I figured that out, that I get to choose, and that my first reaction is not actually wasn't actually me choosing, that change, I think that changed the trajectory, there we go, of my life.
Ooh, so that's so powerful. I love that, because here we're going from food to choice to transformation. And it sounds like you were kind of pushed off the ledge by that loving life force energy to make this transformation.
Oh, yes.
So let's hear a little bit more about that, like what that looked like.
Well, you mentioned a little bit in my intro. I found myself in that. Okay, so let's see, where's the camera? Okay, so I found myself in that loop, and I was on the bottom half of it again, thinking, oh, I'm here again. How did I get here again? I thought I had this figured out. And then again, for me, this time meant that I was literally, I was living in a stranger's home out of, their compassion, with my 3 kids, trying to figure out how to start all over again for the 3rd time. And I realized that I was making choices. Like the last 2 times, it was everybody else's fault. This time I was like, you know what, there's got to be some sort of common denominator here. Yeah. And for me, it was, I started to see the choices that I had made to put me where I was. Yes, everybody had a role to play. And that was another interesting part of my journey, is that I realized we were all playing these roles, and that we didn't really pick them, but we did. And so choice was huge for me. Like, I started realizing that I could choose different.
Yeah, I love that. And so for me, what I'm hearing in that, and from my own experiences, with choice comes awareness. So you start to become aware of what role you're playing, and those choices kind of start becoming more obvious and springing to life, so that you can make a different choice.
Right, because before it was all automatic.
Yeah.
It was, and then actually the nervous system is incredibly involved in it. Autonomic is actually a part of the nervous system. So there's a huge amount of healing that can happen with the realization and the awareness that there's choice, just in that little piece alone.
Yeah, I know. It's an amazing experience when you start to realize the power that you have to, first of all, what you are, because you are the intelligent energy. And what that brings when it comes into form, which is you, the amazing power that you hold in this form with that intelligent energy moving through you. It's mind-blowingly amazing. So much so, I don't know, I think this is probably your experience, but everything starts looking like a miracle from the simplest little things in your life.
The synergies are just fantastic, and they're daily, sometimes more than once a day.
Yeah.
Once you get into that flow. But before you can get to that flow, there needs to be an understanding of choice and story, and some level of understanding that you get to choose your own peace. That peace, that's what everyone longs for. That's what I hear anyway. Like, the chaos has to stop. I need peace. I need, and that's why my business is called Stillness and Purpose, because those are the 2 things that people really want, but they don't know how to get. And not that I'm the only one who's figured this out, and that, like I said, that I figured it out on my own, but I was able to put together this process that, like, I had a client in my office this morning that was just like, I've never been this content. I thank you. And I'm like, hey, yeah, I'm glad I could help,
Yeah. And you channel whatever needs to come, and it comes through you. And then the client is the one experiencing the transformation. But I'm guessing if it's anything like it is for me, you experience transformation yourself in each of those sessions as well.
It's fabulous. Yeah, it's very synergistic, and honestly, it's just wonderful to see the light bulbs go off and see an individual who came in who was really in a state of chaos and confusion to within a pretty short period of time be able to say, I really feel like I understand this now, and it starts here. It starts here,
Yeah.
and they're not, oh, I read this book and I did that and I did this, and they're trying to grab from all these different places, but yeah, it's
right here, baby.
beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about when someone comes in. I know a lot of times when I start talking about it comes from here. There's a defensiveness that can come up, right? Because there's a block kind of that comes up because, of course, we don't want to look here necessarily because it's not that we don't want to take ownership, but we've been stuck in this simple misunderstanding for a long period of time. And that human conditioning is kind of blowing apart, right?
Yeah.
And that's tough.
Well, it's our shadow, or some people like to, well, there's lots of different names for it, right? Our ego is there to protect us, right?
Yeah.
And that conditioning is there it's what got us where we are, which, we're grateful for that. But we integrating the shadow and the light and realizing that your authentic self is actually somewhere within all that. It's not shunning one or the other. It's actually integrating them and creating this whole being. That's where people start feeling their own value. And when they can stop those stories that oftentimes were never theirs to begin with, and write their own story, that's where the power is. There's so much power and grace there. And you can't leave the grace out because
ease, peace, and grace. That's what I say. Ease, peace, and grace. It's kind of like knowing you're okay no matter what. And I know you've been in so many of those moments in your life too.
Yes. Yeah. And in fact, I was just reviewing a conversation I had with another friend about how one of the best ways to start this process of peace is to in that moment of chaos is to ask yourself that question. Am I safe? Am I safe? And if you're not safe, then there's some actions that need to be taken. Sure. But in most cases, sorry about the phone. Okay. In most cases, we are safe, but we don't feel safe. And we got to figure out where that disconnect is. And a lot of times it's in that old conditioning. And it's kind of in nutrition, we say you have to like break the cycle. It's the same thing. It's the same thing in relationships. You have to break the cycle.
Break the cycle. I love that. I know when I was growing up, I had a very chaotic upbringing. And so my body actually it protected me and I disassociated. There's parts of my upbringing that I don't even remember, but I see that now as a protection. And what happened is when I got older and I came out of that, something didn't get the message. I was still in that protection mode. And so it's been a journey of unwinding out of that and seeing that I am okay. If I'm not okay, I have the ability to protect myself without even having to think about it. And there's something way beyond all of that protection that is what I truly am. That is that peace, ease, and grace.
Right. And when we can start tearing down those walls of protection and be comfortable being vulnerable with boundaries instead of protection, right? Those boundaries are they're like the gates, the protection's like a big solid wall of China, right?
Yeah.
So when we can start putting up boundaries that we get to choose and that are movable, life shifts in some pretty dramatic ways.
Oh, I like that distinction between the boundaries and the walls of protection. That's very powerful.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people might not even recognize that. So there's a lot of good things that you ladies can take into your reflection from this conversation already. Asking yourself curious questions. I find that's the best way to start unraveling what's going on is just asking myself. And then the more that you get in that dialogue with yourself, the more that comes through, those answers come through. And in most cases, they're very gentle, kind, loving answers. Can we talk about the difference between your ego protection mode talking to you, the conditioning?
Your higher self?
Yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure. Well, the ego is it can be actually pretty harsh. In fact, it's the part of us that says, you're not enough. You're never going to measure up. This is going to happen again and again. Right.
Right.
And then the higher self is like, hey, you got this. In fact, we've got this. In fact, you've had it all along. In fact, those things you're worried about, you're already doing them. And then there's that moment of like, wait, what? Right. So the higher self is that nurturer, right? It can also be, there's the divine masculine, divine feminine, right?
Right.
Another rabbit hole, right?
Right.
But it can also be very directive, very from the masculine sense of it, but it's also usually much more gracious and kind and loving because there's a sense of peace and there's a sense of control. That's what we long for from the divine masculine is control.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's where the ego likes to step in and control. But we don't want the ego control. We want the divine masculine higher self control.
Yeah. That's a nice distinction too. And having that balance. Men and women both have masculine and feminine energy running through them. So as we can see, I think we see this all over where bringing those into balance now is so critical. I mean, we see where one is run rampant. And now maybe it's time to look at like bringing those more into balance. Not that one's better than the other. It's a beautiful synergy.
Exactly. And so talking about the ego, the shadow and the light, the shadow's not bad. It's just, in fact, you can't have light without shadow. That you both of them, they need to coexist. The yin and the yang, that they need to coexist. They don't exist without each other. So it's about embracing the full person and being able to open your hands instead of holding everything so tightly. Out of control, right? And being able to open your hands and trust the process. That's one of my favorites. Right?
Trust the process. Let's talk about that for a minute. Actually, I have about 10 things I would love to talk about, but we don't have hours, but I do want to talk about that because I get that a lot where I get, Michelle, I can't trust. I was actually on the phone with a client the other day. I've lost all hope. I don't trust anymore. To me, there comes the point where it goes from trust to knowing. And unless you embody, integrate experience for yourself, the trust can be kind of that shaky ground sometimes, but you'll get to a point where you just know how it works. And so trust, that word kind of transforms into know. What do you hear in that?
The first thing that I thought of when you started talking about that is intuition. When it comes down to that, because the knowing comes from our gut, from our intuition. And when we lose track of, or when we lose touch with our intuition because we've been burned, because we trusted our intuition and we were punished, or it seemed that way, we lose our ability to lean in. Instead, we're leaning out. And honestly, sometimes the only way to get through that is to do it anyway.
Is to lean in anyway.
It's to do it in fear. It's to not trust and do it anyway. It's to be in complete lack of trust.
Yes.
And take the leap with the knowing that you're valuable enough to try, and that if you fail, at least you try. So it's a mindset. It comes down to mindset. It's realizing that you can't fail even if you don't trust it. Yeah. And then building that intuition, rebuilding your intuition. That's what I'm working with a couple of clients on right now, is rebuilding faith in their intuition.
I love that. Rebuilding the faith and the intuition.
And that's
Yeah.
really the consciousness journey. That's a journey of consciousness, because our intuition is always serving us in everything that we do. So it's a matter of increasing your awareness of how much your intuition is actually serving you, even in the smallest of things.
Yeah, it's impossible to become disconnected from that, even though it gets covered up by road dirt, is what I like to say.
Because it gets clouded, yeah.
It's always there because that's really what we are. Yeah, exactly. We are a GPS, a giant GPS system.
Yeah. It's that second brain. It's actually, and the second brain is very nutritive, which is interesting, because the second brain actually has things moving up. Yeah, moving out. The bad stuff moves out, the good stuff moves up. So it's actually very impacted by what we feed ourselves. And I'm not talking about food right now.
Right.
So
the whole diet.
Whereas the brain is tough to get in there. No matter what you feed it, unless you start changing what you're feeding your feelings. Let's talk about feelings, please.
Yeah.
Can we do that?
Well, we can talk about feelings for sure.
Because that's really the next step, right? Because everybody says I have a gut feeling. Well, the issue often is that we've pushed our feelings so far out of our own sphere, out of our own control, out of our own ability to process them, that we aren't able to show up. Like, feelings are there to tell us something. They're not bad. They can feel bad, but they're there to tell us something. They're a gift, but we live in a society where feelings are not recognized for that.
Exactly. And that, so if we want to take it to another level, I might say that sixth sense or whatever, it's there and it's real, but it's been squashed by all the human conditioning. And so instead of giving our power away to everybody else and looking for answers every place else, bringing that back inside and coming back into alignment with that sixth sense, realizing the value of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I love that about feelings, because everyone is, especially, not to get into the stereotypes, but men, I think, are especially told to squash the feelings and
conditioned to.
Yeah.
They have just as many, sometimes more feelings than we do. They have the divine feminine and the divine masculine. They've been conditioned to not allow themselves to feel. Well, that can create a large amount of pent up anger and other issues that make it very hard to be emotionally available. Emotional intelligence is very hard as it is. Link that with not being able to actually understand or communicate what your feelings are, and
it's stifling. Like, you could just feel how stifling that is.
It's so heavy.
Yeah. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, where as women, we're often told we're too caring, we're too compassionate, we're too nurturing, we're too emotional, blah, 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 all that stuff. And again, it goes back to those stereotypes, but trying to just kind of neutralize that a little bit and see what the answers are for yourself. A lot of us don't even know how to function in our day-to-day because we've never given ourselves space to investigate that and see what that looks like for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, where are we going now?
I don't know.
What's the biggest surprise that you've had in the last few months and why? I like that one.
I really spent a lot of time in the last few months addressing this concept of you are who you believe you are. Even after the journey that I've been on, I really think I was holding some beliefs about myself that weren't authentically mine. And that was really hitting my value. Like I was still not willing to, for example, charge what I should charge. As far as a coach, that was kind of where it started. But I went on this nice long journey of working with my inner child about how I really am valuable, like as an individual, just showing up, just breathing. You don't have to do anything.
Right.
And so that surprised me that I was like, oh, I've processed all that. Oh no, Oh no, I had
It
not.
came back around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, like as coaches, we're up. I know you walk, talk, eat, sleep, this stuff. Everything that you're working with your clients, as well as myself, we embody it in our day to day. And
Yeah.
so we get zinged by it too. And we learn we'll be doing that until we transition. It's like layers coming off of the biscuit, the flaky biscuit, and it just keeps flaking off. But
Yes.
that's what it's about for
Mhm.
all of us.
Yeah, that becoming that authentic individual and not being worried about what's flaking off and saying, oh, I guess I don't need that anymore.
Yeah, right.
Actually, I didn't need it to begin with. It wasn't actually mine. That was another, and being really open to letting it all go and following that mysterious and winsome sort of path of, I wonder what's next. That's where the fun is.
Yeah, that can look like that mysterious, exciting, exhilarating path. It can look like sheer terror. It can look like the edge of insanity. Like but you get to it. And then I don't know, my experience has been I get to that edge and then I feel an incredible sense of peace. And I see it was never an edge, but it was a beginning.
Yeah, it's that fear versus truth,
Yeah.
that lie. It's actually, there's so many lies that keep us from the authentic beings that we were created to be. And then we get to move into creation, which is another conversation that
Yeah.
but,
We are creation. I mean, like we're creating constantly. To me, it's just, where are you creating? I spent so much of my life, creating, neither good or bad. It just was what it was, but creating in that fear-based conditioned
yes,
place.
creating and recreating.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And that just got to a point where it was exhausting. It felt yucky. And somewhere inside of me, thank goodness, I listened to the pull saying, there's more. And
Yes.
so it's like a giant unraveling that just keeps happening.
Yes. And it's actually really exciting even though it's terror, when you can embrace it or let go. Actually, it's really it's a series of releasing.
Yeah, it's interesting how, I don't know, all the ladies on this that are listening to this will have to feel into that feeling of terror and excitement. Is it potentially the same feeling? It's just the flavor we're giving it, right?
It is actually. I've actually heard quite a bit of teaching on that it's the same exact feeling, and we get to choose how we label it.
What spin put on it.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, tell me, what are some of your favorite self-care activities?
I have learned to love meditation, which is crazy because I used to be like, I can't meditate, I'm too ADD. And music, especially music that the lyrics hit where I'm at, and the movement with the music. So the three are actually all very meditative to me. And just being still. But real stillness isn't always still.
Exactly.
You're not sitting still. You're still. There's very much of an intention to it. So I have learned that, and also feeding myself good foods. That for me was my first step into self-care.
I'm on that voyage now. Love the meditation, and movement is interesting. I'm playing around with that one because before I always held this idea that movement had to be like this vigorous exercise of 30 minutes a day. And, I had to get it in, and I'm being more fluid with what that movement looks like in the day for me.
Yeah.
So playing around with that, the self-care, the self-nurturing, it's, you have to have that. You have to allow yourself to go there in some way.
It's absolutely imperative. Like it has to be a part of my day, even if it's only 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's setting an intention and following through on it. And the value in it it's priceless. and you don't have to meditate for 30 minutes. You can meditate for 5.
Yeah.
You don't have to move for an hour. You can do a 5-minute, get down on the floor or sit in a chair and do some deep breathing. Move your limbs. So that we have options. I think we box ourselves in.
Let's talk about that a part that you said I love so much about how in the stillness there's constant movement. I love that because it took me so long to figure that out, because I didn't realize that as it looks like nothing's happening. Like even right now, the energy is moving so quickly that it looks like it's still, but stuff is happening constantly.
I think a lot of people learned this during the pandemic because we were
Mhm.
forced to slow down. We were
Yeah.
forced to stay in. We were forced to stop doing all those things that kept us busy, that kept us from thinking. The hardest part about meditation is stilling the mind, because that's the goal of meditation. But the goal of stillness is to still the body so that the mind and the soul, the spirit, the connectedness with your higher power can actually happen without all the distractions. So distraction is just the opposite of going in the direction you want to go, right?
Right.
It's right. Dis is the opposite. So it's eliminate the stillness is simply eliminating the distractions. It doesn't mean that you have to do it while you could do that while you're washing the dishes.
Right.
But the intention is the most important part. The intention isn't to get the dishes washed. The intention, right, to do another thing on your to-do list. No, the intention is to feel the water on your hands and be fully present in the moment. That's where the stillness starts. And that's where you can be in stillness much more often than I think we realize, because you're actually fully present in the moment and you're breathing it and you're feeling it and you're touching it and tasting it. And that's when you're fully present. There's stillness there.
I love that.
Because there's peace there. We fully embody our whole being, and then we can see what we might be letting in that doesn't belong to us.
Right, because even though you're in that moment of stillness, you can then, because you're in the moment, become aware of
Yes.
what's coming in. And then that's where that power of choice that we were talking about comes in.
Yes, I like to call it the catbird seat. I don't know if I know when I had to read that poem, it's basically sitting above yourself. You're watching yourself from
Awareness, but yeah, like that
Yeah.
Detachment, and you see yourself as a character or something and get really
Yes.
curious about
And
that.
then
Yeah.
you can see the roles that you're playing, but your body's still moving. And it's an interesting dynamic, and it's really hard to explain it until you've actually done it and been in it. But once you're in it, you kind of get, I don't want to say addicted, but you kind of get like you want to return to that. And that's what I found with meditation. It's like, okay, I can meditate for 15 minutes. Whereas before I'd be like, oh, now it's like, yeah, I want to be there. I want to be fully present.
I love that. Yeah. And again, ladies, it's something that, you experience for yourself, and then you can embody it. No one can experience this for you, which is the experience is so vital. So let's talk about, we're going to wrap this up, just a couple more things. What makes you feel inspired and gives you hope? Because right now we're looking at a lot of external, what would appear to be chaos and sadness and pressure and all those things. So I hear a lot, how can we talk about this beautiful space when all we see around us is grim and despair? Like, what does that look like for you?
That's hard. It's really hard. We have so much going on. It's hard not to get sucked into that mindset. What brings me peace is knowing that no matter how chaotic that it gets, even if it gets more chaotic than it is now, we can't really mess it up. We're here for this. It's right. It's
Okay.
it goes back to choice. My hope is that my faith that there's a bigger plan.
Yeah.
I don't have to control it. I just have to remember that I need to focus on my freedoms and my ability to choose and be fully present with the people. So it goes back to love,
Yeah.
Loving those around me, and that each of us is unique and we have a purpose. So it goes back to that our peace is internal. No matter what's going on outside of us, we have an opportunity to choose. And
that inside out, it's that inside out experience for sure.
It's that to me, that once I realized that I wasn't going to change the world, that that I wasn't going to change the world, but that actually the way I could change the world was to change me. Yeah. Then the chaos that's going on, there's so much we don't understand.
And we won't. And can we make peace with not knowing? Mm-hmm. Can we be at peace with that? It's tough, but that is where the true peace lies. So
when I can bring someone else to that gives me joy and hope.
I think that's a good place to wrap up. I want to ask you my signature question for the end here. Okay. We talked about it all the way through, but in your own words, what does the phrase connecting with your essence mean to you?
It really means connecting with your authentic self, embracing your whole being, the good, the bad, the ugly, not really putting a label on it, but embodying the special individual that each of us are, and knowing that you are valuable just as you breathe, live and breathe. That's all.
I think that's beautiful. We heard that all the way through the discussion. Like, if you'll notice in our dialogue, the same things kept coming up over and over and over again. So it all points to one place, which is beautiful. So I'm going to close up just a couple things. I asked JoAnne to send over a quote. So we have two, because she sent me one earlier in the week, but she sent me one just for today. And you did say it, but I'm going to say it again. Yesterday, I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I am wise, so I am changing myself. And that's a quote from Rumi. Beautiful. And then the other one that you sent me earlier in the week, and I have to believe somebody watching this will need to hear this. We have to confront ourselves. Do we like what we see in the mirror? And according to our light, according to our understanding, according to our courage, we will say yay or nay and rise. Maya Angelou. I love those. I get chills because they're so powerful. Yeah. So ladies, thanks so much for joining us today. We really hope that you get something out of this, and we want to gift you a couple of things. So JoAnne is going to offer a free 50-minute session, which is a $250 value. And it's a discovery call with 30-minute coaching kickstart session with tools from Your Peace Matters mini course that she has. And I'm offering my 60-minute complimentary refresh and reset your mindset strategy session. So the links to take us up on those offers will be below. And I would really grab both of those offers if I were you. Take us up on those. 1 hour of your time with each of us, and you no cost to you except that hour. You never know where it will go. This could be what you have been looking for in that support and that next step that you need. So much love. Thank you, JoAnne, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was fun, and we'll have to do it again.
Okay.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.